Hi everybody, welcome to another MandoLessons Live with my very special and favoritist of guests, Noah Fishman.
Hi.
He's back in Maine for the holidays, and it's always great to have him on. If you're unfamiliar, Noah and I put an album out, what now, a year ago?
Just a year.
Just a
Can
year,
you believe
yeah.
that? This
Feels
February
like a long time.
2019.
But yeah, we put out an album a year ago. We recorded it, when?
In the summer,
In
yeah.
the summer, and then it came out in February, did you say? Wow,
So, not even
better
a year
memory
yet.
than me.
I was just looking at it yesterday.
Oh, nice. Cool. But one of the main reasons that I've got Noah on the show here is because he just put out an album yesterday.
I did, yeah. This album is called The Way Home, which is named after that tune that Baron and I just played. And so this is a really exciting album for me. It's five tracks, 6 of my original tunes that I recorded in Sweden last summer with a whole crew of Swedish folk musicians. It's really good, and I'm really proud of it and excited about it. I hope you can check it out. You can find it by going to Instagram or my Facebook page, or it's on Bandcamp.
I'll find the link and put it in the description here.
Yeah, it's got some really crazy tunes and some really pretty tunes, including the one you just heard. So yeah, give it a listen. You can download it for free if you like, or you can, toss some money my way if you like. But yeah, it's up there for free, and I hope you can listen to it and enjoy it, and maybe learn a couple of these tunes. Yeah, I'd be keen to hear what y'all think, especially because it's a big string sound, lots of bowed strings, but also there's this mandolin that's right there in the center. So
yeah, what's the instrumentation again?
It's mandolin. It's nyckelharpa, which is a Swedish instrument that has, let's see, it's got 16 strings. It's got, or 12 strings. It's got 4 bowed strings and then 8 resonant strings that are running underneath. Or actually, no, it's 12, yeah, it's a set of 12 resonant strings chromatically. So yeah, it's a bowed resonant string instrument, and violin, mandolin, and then 12-string guitar tuned in sort of the Roger Talroth style of I think it's like AD, GD or something like that.
Nice.
So it's a big, open, resonant, stringy sound. So yeah, check it out and see what you think.
It's a great sounding album. We've listened to it a couple times, even though it only came out yesterday, and it's been on constant rotation already. So I just put the link in the chat, but I'll also figure out how to put it in the description here. I think I can do that without breaking things. Oh, maybe I can't at this point. I don't know how the new system works, but I'll put it in the description at the end of the live I was gonna say live podcast.
I guess if you're listening on headphones, this could be a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that first tune that we played there was The Way Home, which is the title track of the album. Always good. So if you're new here, this is not how it usually works, but it's always nice when Noah is here to just kind of have some back and forth. But the main idea here is to have you guys, give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions you might have about playing mandolin. Playing, it's nice when we have Noah because we can talk about kind of playing back and forth and get a couple different options of how things are done, because there's no one right way. Doesn't matter how simple or complex the question is, we'll do our best to answer it. These happen most Saturdays that I'm around at noon Eastern Standard Time, and if you can't catch it live, or you can't catch the whole thing live, they're always archived and you can come back and watch them at any time.
Yeah, if you ask a simple question, we'll give you a complicated answer. If you ask a complicated question, we'll try to simplify our way down and zen it out for you.
All right, let's see what we got in the chat here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can read it from a little further away. All right, I got Dan in Riverside,
hey,
John in Texas,
hey, John.
Sheldon in Minnesota,
hey, Sheldon.
Terry in Oregon,
hey, Terry.
Lewis, as always, in
Evansville,
up, and Denise.
Nice to see you, Lewis.
Michigan.
Nice to see you, Denise. Hi.
Connie from Washington, John from Italy. Awesome, very cool. Lucy's in here. We got Brenda from New York. Karen from Isle of Skye, always cool.
Wow.
County Cork, AC Mullane, always good to have you. Rob from Pembrokeshire. I'm probably not saying that quite right. Saying it like a Mainer. New Zealand, awesome. I don't know if we've... Cloudboy, I don't know if I've seen you here before. If I have, I apologize, but you might have a record, at least, of people who have checked in from New Zealand.
Oh, what are they, 12 hours ahead? Was it like
it's
one
gotta
in the morning on
you got to be dedicated. All right, Denise says, so Noah is going to school out in Michigan.
I do, yeah, living in Ann Arbor right now, and so Denise, maybe I will see you at that show at the Arc. I didn't have it on my radar, but it's always a treat to see Mike Marshall and Daryl play. That'd be fun. I'll try to catch you there.
All right. Robert's happy that Noah's back.
Oh, thanks, Robert.
Denise says you guys have been practicing. I don't know about that, but we're having fun anyway.
Yeah, I ran in the door maybe 5 minutes ago, and it said, "Baron, let's play The Way Home. Do you still know it?" Like, yep,
More
I
or
do.
less. Let's do.
So, that's our practicing.
All right, Michael's got a question here. First off, says congrats on the album, and Noah.
Thanks, Michael.
Could you guys display how one player who knows a tune in a jam setting introduces it to another player who doesn't know the tune?
Good question.
That's a great question, and I think it's a really great skill to develop, not only as a skill to, develop your ability to pick up a tune on the fly, but also your way to communicate kind of what's going to happen in a tune. So, if I was playing a tune that maybe Noah didn't know, I could give him some clues about what's going on. So, let's see. I'm gonna try to pick a tune that you don't know. You know Bill Cheatham?
I've heard it before.
Okay. So let's go along like this. I said no. Let's play Bill Cheatham.
I usually don't know Irish tunes.
Okay, Irish tunes. So let's play the Earl's Chair.
Never heard it.
All right, Earl's Chair. So it's a reel in the key of D. So I'm giving Noah some key information and time signature information. A little funny thing that happens on this tune is it starts out on a B minor. First beat is B minor. Second beat is G, and then it gets a little more normal. And then the B part kind of goes to the A, goes to the 5 chord, A, and has a lot of kind of 5 at the beginning of the B part.
Okay.
And other than that, I think you can pick it up as we go here. So, and Irish tunes are famously notey, so this is an advanced example.
So I'm holding what Baron just told me in my head. I'm a little sleepy today, so that's more of a challenge than usual. But I'm holding what he said in my head, and when he starts playing, I'll probably just start on a D drone. He said it's a reel, so I already know basically what I'm gonna play. And while I'm playing that D drone, I'm gonna be listening for cues from him, and I'm gonna be listening to where does the D work and where does the D not really work. So you can watch me take mental notes.
Yeah. So even though I just gave Noah a couple. And this is all happening in very slow time, of course, because we wouldn't normally have this huge conversation unless we were into it, but usually we just focus on the music. Even though I said, the first beat's B minor, the second beat's G, and then it goes to D, kind of the home key, the tonic, that is, a D is a really safe choice because there's a D in a B minor and there's a D note in a G. So if he drones on a D note, he's got a lot of bases covered. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in, Irish music doesn't normally have a whole lot of double stops, but I'm going to throw in some double stops to really kind of try to point out pretty specifically where these chord changes are falling. So let's do it. Not too, and don't fire off a tune too fast if somebody's never heard it before. I know Noah's fast, so I'm going to go back here. 1, 2, 3, 4. me. Maybe one more.
Cool. Wow, a lot going through my head right now.
Yeah, that's a very notey, kind of squirrely tune. And realizing, and kind of after I started playing, I was like, "Whoa, this is more complicated than I remember it being."
But so there's a few things that I used as hooks. I'd never heard this tune before, but I quickly heard that the first phrase and the second phrase are the same. So if you so I was able to pick up on that little symmetry there. So it's like A. I'm not A as in A part B part, but if you're talking about a rhyme scheme, you know, like A B B sort of. It's like so so then it's A B B. So it's like a thing, a slightly different thing, the first thing, and then it ends with the variation. Yeah. So that's the A part. So,
and often in lessons, I'll talk about that as sort of like a call and a response, or a question and an answer. So we have like question, and then answer, sort of like, or maybe end of the question, and then the question again, end of the question, answer.
So when you're thinking in terms of chunks like that, I don't have to think what's every single note, what note comes after what note. I'm thinking more in the broader picture, which makes it easy for me to start accompanying really fast. I'm gonna sneeze. Hold on.
Yeah. And so something I was doing there was really also as at the same time as trying to, give Noah as much of the melodic information as I could. I was also not playing every single little variation and embellishment that I could think of, and sometimes was even taking out particularly weird little moments in the tune just to make it a little easier to grab onto.
Then the hardest thing for me was figuring out the chords at the end of the B part, because it doesn't strike me as particularly Irish to have A like 5 4 1, which is how the tune ends, right? 5 1 4 1. Yeah, so
yeah,
to have 5 1 4 1.
Yeah,
that threw me for a loop when I heard it. I was like, could it be that? So it took me maybe 3 times through the tune to commit to that as an accompanist. But I wrote a tune that goes that's the B part of one of my tunes. So when I heard the B part of this tune, I was like, oh, that sounds kind of familiar to me. So since I know basically what it sounds like, I'm going to focus on the finer details. I know that, anyway, so it's about using what you know, and using what you know to understand what you don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And as Noah said, he's not like super familiar with a lot of Irish tunes, and the more familiar you are with a genre of music, the quicker it is to kind of know what to expect, or the easier it is to know what to expect, and the quicker it is to kind of lock into, like, you know, that that sort of is a weird thing in Irish music, but it also happens like just enough to be like a thing in my brain where I'm like, oh, it's doing that thing. That's a little weird, but also it's kind of like a piper's move in Irish music. It's sort of like this kind of that, whatever that is, minor sixth. It's sort of like a weird little thing that doesn't, it sticks out for sure, and finding those little moments that stick out, I think, can be really helpful. So I hope that's helpful.
Good question.
You know, I think it really is a joint effort between the person kind of learning the tune, but also the person teaching the tune or displaying the tune to really try to make it as accessible as possible. All right, let's move on, though. We got Steven waiting on a Lore LM400 coming in Monday. That's very exciting. Always fun to have a new instrument in the house. Oh, man. We are way behind on the chat here. We got to catch up. That's what I like to see, though, when it's nice and stuff full. All right. Shari from Indy, good to have you here. Essex, UK, Nikki. Kurt in Minneapolis. Austin, and good to have you here. Donna says, very basic question. When you hold down at the fret, do you hold it lightly or very tight hold? I get more of a thump sound. I hope this makes sense. I appreciate your teaching. Yeah, I think it's a balance. Ultimately, there's only so hard that you need to push at the fret to get a clean sound, and then any amount of like volume or embellishment or dynamics is really going to come out of your right hand. So an exercise that I like to do, and there's a lesson on my website somewhere. I don't remember exactly what it's called. It'd be in the techniques and fundamentals section, probably in the left hand technique. I go through a little exercise of just teaching yourself to push as lightly as possible by just doing this little exercise of just placing your fingers over the frets, and it's not going to sound good. It'll sound like this. So that's not hard enough. You push it a little bit harder. Maybe that's the thumping sound you're talking about, that kind of not getting the clear ringing tone. Push a little bit harder. And you're getting a little bit of buzz at the end, a little bit harder. And you'll get a nice clean tone. And that's where you can stop in terms of energy put into your left hand. And naturally, as you play, the more you play, or the faster you want to play, or the louder you want to play, for some reason our left hand wants to kind of mash down harder the faster or louder, but really that's all coming with your right hand. You know, the volume and the speed don't have anything to do with how hard you're pushing with your left hand. And you're pushing too hard with your left hand is going to actually inhibit your speed and can kind of cause some other problems. So keep in mind on kind of staying nice and relaxed in your left hand can be helpful. Yeah,
something I like to do is just, as Baron said, put my finger lightly on the fret. So I'm D string, 2nd fret, no sound. And then I'm just gonna slowly increase my pressure and notice when it starts to sound like a note. Right there. It's so soon. And I'm barely squeezing at all. Back off a little bit. Also, if you see, so I'm holding my mandolin here. My mandolin's moving because I'm moving it with my picking arm. So when I hold the mandolin like this with my left hand, I actually kind of push the mandolin into my hand. If this is my hand, I push the mandolin into it. So the pressure isn't coming from my hand. The pressure is coming from the instrument against my hand. I play double bass, and this is a bass thing. So instead of squeezing the neck of the bass, you just let the bass lean into your hand, and it really plays itself. I'm not fretting a note, and then I just move the mandolin a little bit into my finger. It's pretty zen. You have to be in the right space to try it, but It's saved me a lot of finger strength.
That's cool, because you can even think about it. You know, even if I don't put my thumb behind as a kind of example, you can do it without. It's a little weird, but. I gotta try that. That's cool.
Donna, the other thing is you definitely want to show your mandolin or whatever instrument you're playing to someone who knows whether it's set up correctly. Because it could be that you're giving your instrument just enough strength, but you have action that's too high. So have someone check that out so you don't hurt yourself.
All right, St. Paul. Good to have you here, Dane. Thoughts on mandolin family being taken as seriously and played as professionally as the violin family instruments?
Good question.
Yeah.
You want to hit it or?
I if you have thoughts, go for it.
The violin is held up as a holy grail. I think because it sounds so much like a human voice. It's really it shares a lot with like the female singing voice. Because it has a bow, you can you can phrase notes in more of a human way. So musicians and composers have really preferred to write for bowed instruments because they're way more expressive. Imagine I'm right now working on a piece for mandolin and string orchestra. The problem with string orchestra, well, the beautiful thing about string orchestra is they can play a note and it goes da, and it lasts a long time. With mandolin, as soon as you hit that initial plunk, the sound starts to die off. So the mandolin can really be swallowed up by other instruments. And so because of that, it's not a very popular instrument to write for. But Vivaldi has really nice mandolin concerti. Yeah, there are people out there who make it work. There's I just listened to Chris Thiele play Samuel Barber's violin concerto, which it sounds really good. But I think you'll notice that when you hear Chris Thiele play classical music, he picks and chooses pieces that will sound good on mandolin. Imagine if he chose to play something really slow, like it would just be a lot of, because at that point you're trying to approximate a bowed instrument. So yeah, the pick can be a little bit of a downfall, but that's why also it's got a quicker learning curve because you don't have to learn how to use a bow and all that stuff.
Yeah, great questions. I'll just leave it there. I think Noah can speak more to that than I just mostly play folk music. Jane, good to have you here. Tips for learning mandolin for classical music. There's a great book by Marilyn Mayer. I think it's The Complete Mandolinist. There's also some great online if you look on Mandolin Cafe in the forum section, there's a whole classical mandolin kind of category there where there's people talking about classical music and mandolin all the time. There's also Katerina Lichtenberg has a Artist Works is that what it's called? Yeah. Like online subscription service that I'm sure is amazing. I've seen little snips from it. I haven't subscribed myself, but I know she's a great teacher and an incredible mandolin player. And I think you can find that if you look up like classical mandolin on artistworks.com. Mm-hmm. What does 5-chord mean? Great question from Denise. Is it like 1, 3, 5? So in D, the 5 chord is A. Why do musicians call it the 5 chord instead of giving the name of the chord? This is a great question. So what we're talking about here is it is related to 1, 3, 5, like the notes of a D chord, which because we were talking about the notes of the scale. So in the key of D, we have D, E, F sharp, G, A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 3, 5. D, F sharp, A. So that's the first, third, and fifth of the scale. So your fifth note in a D chord is an A. In a D scale is an A. And we're calling it a 5 chord because of that reason. And what we're doing is we're using what's called the Nashville number system. There's some lessons in the technique and fundamental section of my website where I talk about this a little more in advance or in a little more depth. And so pretty much what we're doing is we're taking, people will often talk about like 1, 4, 5 songs. Like a classic folk song will have 1, a 3-chord folk song will have a 1 chord, a 4 chord, and a 5 chord. And again, that comes from, there's often a lot of confusion between 1-3-5, which is how you build a chord, and 1-4-5, which is how you build a song out of chords. So in a 3-chord song that's 1-4-5, you do the same process. You go up the scale of, if you're in D, D, E, F sharp, G, A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. D is 1, G is 4, A is 5. So your 3 chords are D, G, and A. And that A, again, is the 5 chord. And so that when I was talking to Noah and saying, like, oh, it goes to the 5, it's sort of a way of telling Noah, a lot of tunes will just start on the 1 chord. So without further information, a lot of people just assume that in a folk tune that it's going to start on the tonic chord. So in the key of D, it's going to be a D chord. So knowing that it's going to start on a non-tonic chord, I say to Noah, it's going to start on the 5 chord, it's going to start on the A chord. And what that does, it helps with, rather than just saying A, it really comes in handy when you're playing with people who are using capos. So if there's a guitar player and we're playing in the key of A, let's say we're in the key of A, a lot of guitar players will capo up to the 2nd fret, put a capo on the 2nd fret, and play a G chord. And if I say, it goes to A here, their brain will kind of turn that into muscle memory, and they'll play an A shape, which will come out as a B major chord because they've got a capo. Whereas if I say a 5 chord, they know that it's kind of the 5 chord shape, and therefore rather than me saying, okay, then it goes to A, well actually that would be a G on you because you have the 2nd fret, and then this guy's on a different fret, it gets very messy very quick. So by just calling it the numbers, everybody's on the same page. Any thoughts to add to that?
It also gets into the concept of function a little bit. When you're talking about the 1 chord, that's usually the tonic chord, which means that's the chord that you come back to. That's the chord that the key of the song is in. If you talk about the 5 chord, that's usually where you're going, and once you hit the 5 chord, you're going to come back to the 1 chord. So using terms like the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 6 chord, the 2 chord, it kind of tells you a little about what the chords want to do. Another way to not get confused between 1-3-5 notes, like 1-3-5 and 1-3-5, is that for function chord, like for functional harmony or for chord names, people usually use Roman numerals. So you'll see a V, and that means 5 in Roman numerals, and that means the 5 chord. So it's a good way of differentiating between the two when you talk about harmony.
Absolutely. All right, I think we're gonna have to speed up our answers because the chat is flying.
All right, lightning round.
All right, so let's see. And Walt from Mexico, good to have you here. A Green asked what the tune was. I assume the tune that Noah and I were playing when we were talking about how to explain tunes to other people. That tune is called The Earl's Chair. Yeah. It's a great Irish tune. I'm 50% sure it's on my website.
Nice.
So it either is or it isn't.
And then the first tune we played was my tune, which is called The Way Home.
On the upbeat. Oh, The Way Home. Yes. Okay. Guitarist mainly playing pretty much fingerstyle. Can the mandolin be played fingerstyle with finger picks, or is it nearly always with a plectrum? It is nearly always with a pick. That said, you can do whatever you want, and it would be cool to see. I'm always curious with people using alternate techniques on the mandolin. Noah is doing a little bit of that right there. So that's a little bit of finger picking. Another thing I've got a lesson on my website. I should do a little finger picking. I don't do much. It's hard to get real projection and volume out of finger picking.
Yeah.
It's a very delicate sound. Something that I'll do a lot, it's called hybrid picking, where I'll keep the pick in my hand and also use often my middle finger.
That's a it's like a jazz guitar thing.
Yeah. And that allows you to skip over strings. So if I want to play the A string and the E string at the same time, and the D string and the E string, and skip the A string, I can, hit the open D string with my pick, and then with my my middle finger, I'm gonna kind of pick up towards my head, with my with the second fret pressed down, and I get open D string, second on the E. You get a little kind of
That's nice.
D.
Never tried that before.
Yeah. I do that a lot on Cosmos Flight.
That's nice.
And it's hard. You can't really. At least I've never experimented with kind of rapid fire, trying to do a lot of that in a row. You'll see a lot of bouzouki players and fingerstyle guitar players, if they are using a pick, do a lot of that hybrid picking. There's lessons on my website in the Technique and Fundamental section on how to do that. Each chord is built. I had a little more talk on chords.
Have Dog Will Travel.
Yeah, good to have you here. Have Dog Will Travel. Hi from Montana. Good to have you here, Gail.
Lewis, you got it right.
Yep, Nashville number system. Have Dog Will Travel. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. It helps us do things like this and get people like Noah on the show. Except only Noah, because he's the only one that's ever been on MandoLessons but me. But yeah, MandoLessons is fully donation run, so anything helps. Not required, but always appreciated. So thank you. Have Dog Will Travel. Chip, good to have you here.
Hey, Chip.
David says, how do you cross pick? Ultimately, cross picking is just hitting strings in succession. So if you have like a G chord down, you can use a quick little. There's lessons again in the Technique and Fundamental section of the site. But as a quick example, if you have a G chord down, you're just going to kind of alternate between strings. There's no set pattern that's right or wrong. You just need to figure out what works best for the musical situation. You can go down on the G, up on the D, down on the A with the second fret, and then up on the D, down on the G. You can move to a C chord. Same pattern in the right hand, back to G. Now to D, B minor, B flat, G. That was fun.
Let's do that again.
Cool. Here we go. G, C, D, D. And Noah's using a different pattern. B minor. That's fun. So yeah, there's Noah's doing something totally different, and then we're doing a little bit of variation. But the general idea of cross picking is, hitting consecutive strings, one after another.
Rob,
Noah can talk about his mandolin.
Yep. Nothing too crazy. I'm playing a Pava Kanicevic A style mandolin, made in the same workshop as Tom Ellis's mandolins in Austin, Texas. I got it on the internet, and it's doing me fine.
Yeah, it's
I
a great
got
sounding mandolin.
Tone guard on the back. I'm using a Wiegand TF 140 pick. Pretty typical setup.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty much the same thing. Ellis, prime tone pick. No tone guard, but I do have one on the different mandolin. And I played with the tone guard for many years. It's kind of personal preference. AC says, been pressing too hard with my second finger. Got a nasty swell. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Rest up. Feel better.
Andrew, thank you so much for the super chat donation. Once again, always appreciated. Looks like Andrew is enjoying Noah being back.
Thanks, Andrew.
Have a good New Year yourself and happy holidays. All right, best mandolin.
Yeah, I played the Gretsch Park Avenue.
Cool. I have not.
Yeah, my friend Hampus in Sweden.
Nice.
He's an Irish musician and a Swedish guy, and he plays in a really cool band called Beckafall. I went on tour with them this summer in Sweden, and that's the mandolin he has, and he plays a lot of tunes on it. He's written some really nice tunes on it. If it's got 8 strings and quacks like a duck,
some sound holes.
Yeah,
1 or 2 sound holes.
Yeah, I think whatever you've got is probably great. Put some new nice strings on it. Get a nice pick.
A nice setup.
Enjoy.
Yeah. Marvin says, I think a good tremolo sound is as beautiful on a mandolin as one of those long violin notes. Yeah.
That's sweet.
Oh, the chat jumped.
Okay.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Ron says, any recommendations for a beginner mandolin? I'm looking at either Eastman or Kentucky. You can't go wrong with either of those, really, as long as it's coming from, a reputable seller who's going to get them in and do a little bit of setup on them so they're going to play easiest. A lot of times if you buy a mandolin on Amazon or through eBay, like that's coming out of a warehouse that maybe hasn't seen a professional to set it up at first, you might, you could get lucky and get a mandolin that plays great and sounds great, but you could get a mandolin that's going to be a little frustrating, hard to play, and it's just going to kind of detract from the overall experience and make you play less. But yeah, my go-to recommendation is the Kentucky KM 150. It's a great mandolin. They've kind of gone up in price over the years, but you can, especially if you can find them used, often on like Craigslist or the Mandolin Cafe classifieds, a couple $100 is going to be a great place to start.
My first mandolin was Eastman 305. Yep. It's great.
Also a great mandolin.
Yeah, I still have it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good options out there these days. I think the biggest thing is if you have the opportunity to go to a store and get your hand on some mandolins, then that's going to be the best thing, because then you're leaving with the exact instrument you played, rather than hearing a lot of like, oh, that's a good one, and then getting one, because there's variation between instruments. So getting into a store and trying some is always the best.
Whoa, that's bold. Grinding down the top of your own mandolin.
Oh, where's that?
I'm playing the part.
Oh,
wow,
yeah. I would say avoid that unless you're an experimenter, but hey, if it works, it works.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something you could take to a luthier too. Say, I like this instrument, but I want the top to be, I want the braces to be thinner or something. Yeah.
Okay.
How deep are your pockets? Oh, that's Deron.
Let's play another tune. Yeah.
I'd love that.
What would you like to play? Maybe something nice and energetic?
Something energetic, yeah, sure. Do you want to play Sweet Nell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. You want to kick it off?
Yeah.
It's a great old-time tune called Sweet Nell. All right, let's see. Circle of Fifths, talking a little more theory discussion going on. KM505's great mandolin. Angle grinder.
Angle grinder.
Got my dad's days mixed up. Forgot what day it was. All right, James, good to have you here.
Hey, James.
All right, as James mentioned, you can always catch these things later. It'll be archived, live archived. It'll be archived forevermore.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
Happy holidays, by the way. Forgot to say.
Happy holidays to everyone. Happy New Year. Let's see. Denise says, Rob, that's what I play. Bad thing is, it sounds so good. Can't rationalize upgrading. Yeah, those Kentuckys are great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I played yours, Denise. Still sounds good.
Yeah, it's great sound of mandolin. Tone guard. Yeah, I think personally, I think I think it would be hard to argue that it's not a personal choice.
Yeah, it is very much a personal choice. This is a tone guard. Costs like,
like
70 bucks.
65, 70 bucks.
Yeah,
new.
You can get them used on the Mandolin Cafe for maybe 40 or 50. It's just a piece of metal that's got a little bit of an arc to it, and it separates the scaring Baron away here with the tone guard talk. What it does is it just very slightly adds maybe half an inch of space between the mandolin and your body.
So, if you want to figure out if you like a tone guard, a nice, cheap, easy way to find out. It's got a cookie baking rack. You can put it between yourself and the mandolin. Take it out. It's a quick little mandolin life hack.
Yeah, that's very much a hack.
I remember when tone guards first started becoming popular, sitting around with my friend, we were like, oh, those things look cool, and I like the idea, but, I was like a 12-year-old. I was not about to, drop 70 bucks on a piece of metal that I wasn't sure about. So my friend and I were like, I know what we can do. We got these and just I think we somehow rubber banded them to our mandolins for a little bit, and we were like, oh yeah, it does make a little bit of a difference. Pretty much what it's doing is just holding the instrument off your body to keep the back from resonating.
Yeah.
I mean, to keep the back from being muted.
Another thing you can do is just strum your mandolin and then, move it away from your body and see if you hear a difference.
Yep.
So Baron doesn't have the tone guard.
Yep. I played with one for many years, and then it was just a different sound. That said, a couple years ago I got an old Gibson old hole mandolin, and I don't know what it is about it, but I like having, it's really hard to see because the color's so dark, but it's got a tone guard back there. Just, I don't know. Something about the instrument made me want a tone guard again.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have sold my first one.
I've got 3, I think. Maybe I'll put some on Mandolin Cafe if someone wants to buy one. Hit me up.
Nice. All right, let's see. Oh, getting close to the end of the chat. Also getting close to the end of the hour. So if you got any questions, throw them out there, or forever hold your questions until next week or whenever I come back on and do another live stream. But if you got questions for Noah, ask him now, because who knows next time he'll be on. I'm sure he will again, but you never can tell.
Yep. So if you got a question for me, hit me up. You can also get a hold of me pretty easily on the internet if you want to ask me any life or mandolin question. Moa.
I'm also just going to throw out, so if you missed the beginning of the live stream, Noah just put out a new album yesterday, and I'm going to link to it. It's a wonderful album of a lot of original music, and you can listen to it at the link that I just posted in the chat. I'll put it in the description of the video later on. I posted about it earlier on the community tab of my YouTube channel. Yeah. And check it out. I've been listening to it heavily for a couple days now. It's good. Real good.
We opened with a track from the album, The Way Home. And today I'm going to do what I can to upload a music video that I recorded in Sweden with these Swedish musicians of us, the 4 of us, playing The Way Home. I think it's really beautiful. And especially if you're living somewhere cold right now, this video will bring you some warmth. So take a look at my Instagram and Facebook page if you want to watch that video.
All right, let's see. Tried to work out the key. Is this in the key of A? That is correct.
Ding, ding,
key
ding.
of A major. Anyone know what the play-along tune is this week? Soldier's Joy. All right, thank you, Lewis, for checking that out. Because I had totally forgotten about those entirely. So, in about 4 minutes, we'll we'll finish up the hour by playing a little bit of Soldier's Joy. Do you play that tune?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Great. And it'll be fun because we can pass it back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
We'll pass it to you. We'll have a three-way jam this time. Always fun. So got a couple minutes left though.
Thanks, Ron. Sweet of you to say.
Yeah, it's a great. I'll look into making a lesson on that. It might require a little bit of figuring out, but it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Do you play any other instruments, Noah?
Boy, do I. Yeah.
Boy, does he.
I add another one every couple months or so. I just am picking up the banjo this week. But yeah, I grew up playing piano. I played clarinet all through middle school and high school. I played drums. I have played a lot of jazz on drums. My main other instrument is bass. I play double bass and electric bass, which also means I play 6-string guitar. And yeah, I keep adding them on. I play, tenor guitar, tenor banjo. Things I don't play are brass instruments.
End of story.
I don't play any brass instruments.
How much time have you put into the nose flute?
No.
You play a little bit of fiddle.
I play a very little. I play at the fiddle. I don't really play the fiddle, but I'm getting the banjo bug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nasty bug in the best way. All right, let's see. Nice hack on the tone guard. Yeah. Nice.
I'm just
rubber bands tomorrow.
I'm picturing you walking around town with a baking tray,
yeah.
or an oven rack strapped to your belly, just down at the market.
Extra points if you can find the round cookie sheet, because then it really, or not the cookie sheet, but the drying rack, whatever those things are called.
The tone guard, it separates the mandolin from your body. You see a lot of old time mandolin players play with the mandolin out like this, because that means the sound isn't getting sucked against your body. So you see a lot of people playing like.
Yeah.
I can't play like that at all. But.
Yeah, and then, there's a lot to be said. Also, if you watch the first lesson in my beginner series where I talk about kind of proper technique, I talk a lot about kind of getting, it's a lot to do with your left shoulder. But if your mandolin is kind of flat on your stomach, your left shoulder gets pushed back. So if your shoulder's neutral and your elbow's neutral, just hanging down at your side, it kind of forces the mandolin away from your body a little bit to begin with. So you're not playing. So there's a lot of difference. I'll see if I can get a little bit of a taste here. So here's a very muted mandolin, and here's a totally unmuted mandolin. It's a subtle difference, but there's just a little bit more kind of. I was gonna say resonation. Resonation. Going on.
It sounds. I can hear the difference in person.
Yeah,
but
might not come through the live stream.
Yeah, find someone who you trust, whose ears you trust, and say, hey, does this sound different when I do this, or do this, or do this, or do this, or do this?
Is that Soldier's Joy? Great. All right, so let's play a little bit. So the way this works is we're gonna help you get your mandolin out and get it nice and tuned up. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass this tune around. The tune is Soldier's Joy. If you're unfamiliar with it, this is a great way to, just get in there and pick up whatever you can. Try to play some chords along with it. Try to pick up a note here or there. The lesson is on my website, so if you want to learn it later, you can. You can also take a peek. There's chords, sheet, tablature, things like that on my website if you want to follow along visually. And we'll pass it back and forth. So we'll start out. One of us will be playing the melody. One of us will play the chords. You can do whatever you want. At some point, you'll take it. We'll take it. We'll just pass it around as if we're all sitting together in person. Maybe Noah can start the melody on this one because I can't remember how it goes.
It's D, right?
D. Yeah, not super fast. Somewhere in there. So here we go. Actually, what I was going to say a little after that. So if you haven't played the tune, pick up what you can. If you have, this is a great way to get it back in your fingers and, work on solidifying the tune in your brain so you can play it without, having to look it up, which is something I clearly need to work on. And if you've played it a million times and it's old news, try to add a little bit of improvisation or embellishment to it. Just try to push yourself wherever you're at and have fun with it. So here we go. Key of D, old-time reel called Soldier's Joy. 1, 2, 3, 4. A2. take it. Second B. Take it, Noah. Let's all play it together. Thank you all so much.
Hope you're all a bunch of joyful soldiers out there.
Thanks to Key of E38 for the very generous super chat donation.
Aw, sweet of you. Thanks.
Very, very kind. Helps keep these sort of things going. Hope you all have a great new year. I'll see you soon. I don't know exactly the next time this will happen, but keep an eye out on Saturdays. Hopefully next week, but we'll have to see. Things are getting busy around here. But that said, if you got a request, fly around my Pretty Little Miss next time. Let's do that. Lewis beat me to the announcement of what we should do next time. You guys are starting to get the hang of this quicker than me. Coal Harbor Bend, also a great tune. That one's not on my website, so maybe I'll go for a fly around my Pretty Little Miss just because it's on my website. I would love to put Coal Harbor Bend on the website. That's also not technically a traditional tune, so I'll have to do some research on that one. It is a great tune though. So yeah, let's plan on a fly around for next time. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Just gonna make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat. Is Noah only using his index finger and thumb to hold the pick? Yep. If you want to learn how to hold the pick like Noah and I do, check out my website, MandoLessons.com. We've got pretty much the same technique, and you'll see my way of doing it anyway.
Yeah. Howdy, Ben. Oh,
hey, Ben. Get over here and play some music. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you all soon. Have a great new year.
Keep on picking.
Happy picking. Bye-bye.